Hello, I'm Debbie Howard from Senior Living Smart, and today I am been so looking forward to talking to Maggie Seybold, Vice President of Customer Insights with Welcome Home Software, where she leads data-driven research and innovation that helps senior living operators better understand their markets, sales performance, and evolving customer behavior. Her work leading Welcome Home's consultative insights team and building benchmark reports, including the 2025 year in review that we're going to chat about today, has made her a trusted voice in senior living data trends, where she brings clarity, context, and practical takeaways to conversations about where the industry has been and where it's heading next. Welcome, Maggie.
Thank you so much. I've been so looking forward to this conversation as well. It's funny being a practitioner of data. I'm just so excited to have the conversation sometimes because you get so in the weed with the numbers and so, oh, got to come up for a breath of fresh air to apply some of this stuff.
They let you out of your data box to have these conversations.
Exactly. Freedom.
That's right. Overall, all good news for 2020. For the most part, like if you aggregate all the data from this amazing, I don't know how you did this, my brain hurts just looking at the 70-page report. But when you distill it down, if you look at the industry on average, it certainly is encouraging. I don't know whether you want to start there and let's start high level and then let's dig in a little bit into level of care, nuances, and things like that.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think you nailed it. Overall, this was a very positive year for senior living, reflecting on 2025. I would go so far as to say this is a year of fine tuning compared to the prior 2, 3, 4 years that we've been looking at. We've gotten to a point now where COVID is fully in the rear view. Half of communities on Welcome Home are right at 90% occupied, and we are now afforded the opportunity again to get really specific about strategy and where in the funnel we want to focus from a sales and marketing standpoint to maximize ROI instead of just occupancy, which is what we've been battling for years. And it's been really exciting and encouraging to hear that echoed by our customers, but also so obvious in the data too.
Yeah, it really comes through. And there's been some equalization. Like when we first came out of COVID, IL led the pack, and then everybody else kind of lagged a little bit as consumers were more wary. And looking at this, one of the biggest aha moments I saw was, hey, memory care, standalone memory care, like bam.
Yeah.
It's they're having a moment.
Yes. And I think it's a really interesting time because we have recovered so much as an industry, but also there are some huge demographic shifts happening, technology shifts happening that are all coming together and impacting us all at once. And I think memory care, part of it is there was so much work to be done on just stabilizing outs. We had such a problem with revolving back door with memory care, and some of that has gotten right sized in the past year so that move-ins can be productive and you see those occupancy gains again. But it's also a demographic change. We know that the baby boomers are here, and we know that folks are living longer. They're living longer with chronic challenges, many of those relating back to Alzheimer's, dementia, and memory care is needed. So it's interesting to see all this come together at one time.
Yeah, it really is. And another thing that kind of came across really well is it's not necessarily about more leads, right? Leads were very stagnant, certainly not more leads, and there was a slight dip, but not enough to really be noticeable. But do you see people beginning to pivot away from more and towards better?
Yes, and I think this is something that is a bit of a benefit from that rising tide. Folks are starting to feel a little more comfortable saying, you know what, I'm going to pull back on my traditional volume-based approach with leads and focus more on a quality-based approach with lead gen. And they're giving themselves the room to experiment a little bit with that. There's been many ways that experimentation has come through, but there's just been deep investment in digital tools, deep investment in marketing, some critical thinking and strategy application when it comes to how folks use aggregators and when they use aggregators versus in the past just relying very heavily on that source as a whole. I think in 2023 the peak was 46-47% of leads coming from aggregators, so this is looking very different.
Right.
Very different world. So some of that is just having the space and the confidence to fine tune a bit on the lead gen side, but then on the theme of technological change, the way that influencers are searching for senior living is changing too. And rather than going to a place for moms, seeing a list of 10, investigating all 10, you may go to ChatGPT and ask, what's the best senior living community near me? And who knows what
That's
will
right.
come up. So it's, yeah, there's a lot playing into that.
Yeah, it's great. It's so interesting to see the influence of AI in general and AI answers and overviews, and then people really using some of the AI tools to do that really personal research. And I was really shocked when I was just doing for a client, I was just doing kind of market research using AI, was saying, tell me about what do you know about this community? And it told me everything about the community,
Amazing.
pricing, sentiment, pros and cons, levels of service, like everything. And I was like, oh, okay, tell me about the competitors. Gave me everything I needed to know about competitors, right? You don't have to go to an aggregator to get everybody's pricing, services, amenities, pros, cons, reviews and reputation, and that type of thing. And then it went even further because it said, if you want to put in a scenario, I'll tell you which one of these is right for you. I'm like, what? So we've gone from an information engine to
Mhm.
a recommendation engine.
Yes.
And so I put in a scenario, and luckily they did pick our client as being the best choice for the scenario I put in. I was like,
Excellent.
oh, that was good. And then it asked me, because then I said this was a life plan community and some of the others were rental. Why would you not recommend a rental for me? And it went through and it like dissected the different things. And then it said to me, if you would like to put in the value of your home, your income and asset information, anything you're comfortable with sharing, I will do a 15-year projection, financial projection to let you know which one of these model. And I'm like, oh. Wow. So I
Mhm.
think a lot of the role that aggregators played, really being that source of truth and having everything gated and just the way that model works is you don't need it anymore. So I saw this huge reduction in aggregator. It didn't seem to impact Maggie. The conversion is still like 3 to 6% conversion.
Yeah. And conversions were up across the board, which is so exciting. And I think it's partially increased attention, but I think it is partially the impact of the quality of leads coming in too. Because to your point, there is so much more pre-vetting happening naturally that the
Yeah.
set of prospects you're getting, in theory, they're only looking at a couple options. They feel more comfortable with those options. They have some level of confidence about their fit and their ability to pay, which is often the biggest barrier. And so you get folks who are a better fit just out of the gate. And so your conversions go up for that reason. And then also having fewer leads that are a better fit creates more time for the sales director to spend time building the relationship, which is ultimately probably going to win you their business,
Yeah.
versus having to manage outreach with 40 folks instead of just 20 who really want to be where you are.
Yeah, I love that you brought it back to the engagement with the salespeople because
Mm-hmm.
it's like there's so many widgets and tools and technology that are reinforcing a transactional nature at the top of the funnel because
Mm-hmm.
people just want answers and they're researching and not ready to speak with sales yet. But once they make that pivot and they want to talk to sales, they want to talk to them immediately.
Yes.
They expect a very personalized nurturing or an engagement. And I think ultimately, the highest level of empathy and humanity and creativity at the sales level really wins the day.
Because at this point, the information, they are getting some of that. It's more just they're looking for some confidence, I think. And it's hard to get your confidence from the computer screen. You can read testimonials, and that's what's great about reviews. Folks take reviews very seriously, and it gives you a pulse on what it might be like to be in that environment. But your first impression of the community is going to be the person that you speak to. And then you get a second opportunity with the tour, hopefully. So to show them around, show what life looks like, show what their specific apartment, cottage, etc. will look like. And that's your big opportunity. But that first call is critical. And I think it's actually not in this report, but in one coming up shortly, we're looking at behaviors that differentiate top performers from those that stay static or just don't see that consistent growth results. And one of the standout features of top performing communities is certainly the speed to that first contact, but the first contact being a call that is longer than 4 minutes. So we're seeing
Oh,
responsiveness in addition to care that's more in person versus I'm going to send you an email and a text and I'm going to follow up 4 times over email and text. And maybe
Yeah.
eventually, after a couple rounds of phone tag, we'll get in touch and I'll answer your
Yeah.
question about pricing and then it's on to the next.
It's that human to human. I want to hear a voice on the other end of the phone that's empathetic and ready to listen.
Yeah.
So when you have that phone number, make sure that you use that.
And one of Teddy, our VP of sales, one of his favorite points to make is automation around email and text is fabulous to set someone up to know that you're going to call them and to prepare themselves to build that relationship. Because sometimes you are, especially thinking of the influencer of today, likely a woman with a job, likely a woman with a job managing some older adult children who are knocking on her door. She's busy. So if you call her out of the blue, it's not getting answered. So you better
Right.
text first, schedule the call, and then call.
You got to do it all, right?
Yep.
Got to
Right.
get their attention. So it looks like where aggregators have gone down, at least the national aggregators, it seems like the more local aggregators from this report, like who can take the family to tour, who really know the marketplace, seem to be increasing in influence.
And I think that comes back to the relationship building component. When you partner really aggregator, national aggregator or local, when you partner really well with someone who knows your community well, you have a much better baseline for setting up that fit between a prospect and an individual community because the person in the local environment knows that community really well and can give you some of that confidence again. Where the national models can struggle a bit with that because they don't have the same familiarity. I would say a very similar trend has come through with call center style services at senior living operators. We're seeing a lot of folks trying this, and what we're finding is the more familiar that call center representative is with the individual community, the better off this is going to go.
Yes.
I mean, it can be successful in all fronts, but especially when you've got folks who can speak to the community experience as that first touch and build the confidence, it seems to be highly functional.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, we have clients who are trying outsource call centers versus developing their own internal team that has
Mm-hmm.
more of that brand knowledge and local community knowledge. So it is interesting. I think people are understanding that speed to the lead is most important and voice to voice is most important. And I don't remember if it was a Welcome Home report or just another industry report that talked about that the highest conversion to tour scheduling was actually phone calls. So call-ins had the higher tour conversion. So maximizing those kind of voice-to-voice interactions, people are just trying to figure out the best way to do it. We tried that. We sold Lead Genie about a year and a half ago, but it was something that we tried really hard to instill was
Mm-hmm.
getting that local knowledge and finding people who sounded like they lived in that community.
And part of it is just with the call in stat you mentioned, so much of it is momentum to a specific community, and then you can build on the confidence piece. But I don't know if you noticed in the report also, non-professional referrers are the source that wins the day. Like we want the folks in the community to be pushing prospects towards a community that is a good fit for them because that momentum is there. And the same is true for professional referrals. I think the only difference being there's such a heavy reliance on medical professional referrals, and you really do need to be thoughtful about educating those partners often because they are super busy as well, and they will send you folks that are the wrong care fit for your community, and then you have to figure out how to deal with that on your sales team with your ops team, and it can be a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Getting through.
And are you finding salespeople are beginning to gain confidence in getting out there and developing those professional grassroots network, whether it's business professionals or healthcare professionals? Because it seemed like for a while we couldn't get anybody to leave the building to go out and build those networks, and they just
Yeah.
wanted to wait for the leads to come in through digital and form fills and paid ads and all those other channels. And there was enough volume maybe that they felt like that was okay, but the conversions are just so compelling and the lengths of stay are really compelling for those
Yes.
unpaid referral sources and friends and family and that type of thing.
Yeah. And honestly, coming out of COVID feels so long ago at this point, but it had some huge digital implications for our industry. And one of those implications was we forgot how to get out into the community. And because so many people were so uncomfortable being in person for such a long time, digital interaction became the first type of interaction. So just the sheer volume of leads coming in through digital channels in 2022 and 2023, to your point, you could sit there and say, this is sufficient for me to fill the building. I'm getting lots of leads and I'm going to work them from here. And if I leave, I'm going to
Yeah.
miss some opportunities. So I think two things have happened in response. One, teams have gotten a lot more thoughtful around guiding leadership in particular about guiding their teams on how to manage their time, balancing between outreach and being available in the building to execute on tours, to receive inbound interest. And also just managing the bench of folks who can receive inbound interest. It doesn't have to be just the one salesperson. There are plenty of people at the community that can do that. But just figuring out that balance has gotten easier in the past year or two. And I would also say now that our orientation has shifted away from more leads all the time is better to smaller set of more qualified leads is easier to work through, that does open up some time for you to spend planning for tours, to be out in the community, collaborating with your team. To ED follow-up is something that we've seen be massively effective. So some of that time savings has gone towards better collaboration, more time in the community, and just more prep for each individual customized experience with a prospect.
Oh, God, you hit on four big things right there, Maggie. For professional outreach, we're even starting to try to support them on the marketing side by actually doing some marketing automation
Yeah.
around just educating professional referral sources. Now, we need the community teams to build the list and tell us who to nurture and who the discharge planners and social workers and elder law attorneys and geriatricians and all of that. But back in the old days, we used to, number one, go into our EHR, right, and figure out who are the medical professionals who are serving our existing residents. That's a
Yeah.
great place to start building relationships, right? We should have some awareness. Or we tap our nurse and say they have relationships in that area as well, and try to go and segment out who can help and who
Yeah.
has the relationships. I hope that community teams get back to that because it is super effective.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because I think we talk about collaboration between sales and ops all
Yeah.
the time, but I think refer partnership is one area where we have just completely forgotten who the expert is at this. And you've got to be partnered with your wellness team to figure out who to go communicate with on the refer outreach side. The other thing I'll say is we've done a few case studies on this and we have some capabilities in the CRM to track this, but what you'll find is of all of the refers in your refer data set in your CRM, probably 5% of them are producing all of your leads. And of that set, half of those are producing the ones that actually move in and stay with you for a long time. So there is a science to this, and part of it is, to your point, figure out who your people are. It's probably a smaller set, and then
Yeah.
be really consistent with them and develop that relationship again versus trying to be everywhere all at once out in the community.
Yeah. And I think the problem is that people just didn't really have a lot of transparency into what are the conversion rates? Like we measure everything on the prospect side, but maybe not as closely on the professional referral side.
Yeah.
So when you can start having a dedicated landing page that referral sources can go to put in their referrals that can track not only what account, but who within the account is doing that. Now you can set up dashboards that really show you how many people are trying to refer, how many of those referrals are qualified, and then transition into move-ins. So I think leveraging that connection to some of the digital tools and automation tools that we have is really effective. Same with friend and family referral programs. Like
Yeah.
we know friend and families,
The best.
best. Oh my gosh. Highest conversion,
Yeah.
lowest cost, best length of stay. Let's do that. But if we're just expecting the community teams to hand out a flyer every month versus automating and making sure, and who knows if they do it, you can't track it. But if you have a landing page for families to go to, now we can make sure that in Welcome Home, we know that family has done 4 referrals and 2 have moved in. And then when it comes time to giving them the incentive for when those referrals move in, we're trying to figure out who gave us that move in. It's sitting right in Welcome Home and we know who's doing that.
Yeah, it really does come down to consistency on the refer generation side because we all live such busy lives. If you see a screen once or a flyer once, maybe it lodges, maybe it doesn't. You have to see it a few more times to remember, and it needs to strike at the right moment. So just the consistency is very important. And it's one thing that we're thinking about a lot as the industry shifts and the buildings are going to more naturally fill up. We want to be focusing on building community from a sense of relationships within the residents, from a quality of life standpoint. And it does matter that we are attracting folks that are interested in what we have. And so that's where that quality piece really does come back into play, but also leaning into friends and family referrals, because also you want to be where your people are. I
Right.
mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. And right now, my husband and I are thinking about where we're going to move next. And it always comes back to, I just want to be where my friends
That's
are.
right. And that
So if
doesn't
they're there,
change.
then I'll move. Yeah.
It does not change as you age. You still want to be in those
Yes.
places and have that sense of belonging and connection. That's really what people are looking for. And it always surprises me too that we'll see campaigns where they're willing to give a resident and family maybe, I don't know, just for example, $2,500 rent credit for a move in from a referral. And then their staff maybe $1,000. A lot of those CNAs, they're working multiple jobs. They're at a home care agency or they're at a skilled nursing. They can be hugely influential. And so I'm all for up leveling to make sure that our staff gets the same treatment and benefit as the friends and families do.
Yes. And I think you want it's just the fundamentals of a good team. You want your team to believe in your product and champion your company. And
Yeah.
so if you give your team a reason to do that, that will pay off in a big way out in the industry. We all go and do things like get our hair, maybe not some of the boys, but we all go and get our hair done and we talk about our jobs, we talk about the people we meet in a day, and it just happens naturally. So it is really important to make sure your team is happy and also cover all your bases from a referral standpoint.
Yeah, very important. Let's transition to another thing that you said that was so important and it came through on this report. It's not the first time you've come across it, but somehow just maybe the statistic was like, wow, which is executive directors doing follow-up calls after tours, 40% higher conversion to move in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, how difficult is it to pick up the phone, introduce yourself, tell us about your visit? Because everyone wants to go right to the top. They want to go to the boss, not the salesperson.
And isn't that the truth? But I think so we did a whole case study on this effect of how the executive director engages in sales and the impact that it has. And we looked specifically at post-tour engagement. So this is a very small section of the sales funnel. What we found was executive director engagement after the tour in the form of a phone call, usually averaging between 3 and 4 minutes, increases the likelihood of a move-in meaningfully and also shortens the sales cycle meaningfully. And we're looking for areas where maybe there's some hesitancy and we're trying to give that prospect some comfort, and the executive director is the comfort.
Yeah.
They're coming in, they're the representative of the community, they run the community, they're remembering your name. That can make such a huge impact. And it's,
Yeah.
again, it comes back to the one team mentality, and executive directors are incredibly busy, but one, planning for the tour so that it's on the executive director's radar, such a bonus if you can get them on the tour, have a
Yes.
little swing by moment.
Yeah.
And then you do a follow-up call after, hey, I hope you had a great tour. If you have any questions or concerns, please come directly to me, already replicating the relationship you might have if
Yeah.
you were to be a resident. So it's I think it's in our Q2 benchmarks report, which is now all on the Senior Care Insights portal, and I can touch on where to find that later, but it's a fascinating one.
Yeah. Yep. I love that one. I think that's something so doable. And I think you can even schedule it as an automated, like it can be automatically scheduled for the executive director right from Welcome Home. Really make it easy to make sure that those touch points happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then talk me through anything new around conversions. We talked a lot about top of the funnel, where the leads are coming from.
Yeah.
When you look at your top 10%, like your really strong performers, and then you look at maybe some of the folks that are struggling a little bit, what are some of the consistent things that the top 10% just do and do well?
Great question. And it flows so well from the executive director follow-up.
Right?
Because I think when we think about 2025 being a year of fine-tuning, a lot of that fine-tuning effort was around the top of the funnel. And Welcome Home is so determined to get people focused on Tour to Move in 2026.
Yeah.
The reason for that is in 2025, we had more tours as an industry than we've had before. We're doing a great job converting, and then we just lose track of them after the tour.
Yes.
So, two themes that really stick out for those that do incredibly well on the Tour to Move in side. First is immediate follow up. So, it's that executive director call, it's that follow up from a sales director, it's a thoughtful note, it's a brochure about an activity they mentioned on the tour that you have coming up in the next couple weeks. Just maintaining the touch point right out of the gate. And then the second thing, which is so obvious, but just don't forget about that.
Yeah.
We have a report in Welcome Home called the Dwell Time Report.
I
And
love that one.
It's my favorite.
So good.
So good. And it shows you how long your set of prospects have been in a particular stage by period of time. So number of folks that have been post tour for 15 days versus 15 to 30 days versus 30 to 60. And oftentimes you see there's a lot of people in that 60, 90, 120 plus day bucket. And these are folks that either we've lost track of or they tell us that they need some time and space, but they are folks that we should keep warm. We should continue communicating that with them, keeping the door open for contact. But frankly, my guidance is that you shouldn't have 90% of your leads in that bucket. You really do want people communicated within the month as often as you can, especially if you're getting indication post tour that they're giving you really high post tour survey scores. They're saying they're likely to move in. They're leaving Google reviews. Don't lose that person. And that happens more than you would think. So I think just real discipline around follow up and management of leads post tour is truly the secret. And I think using the tools that you can to make that easier through automation and scheduled activities is certainly a piece of the puzzle, but part of it is also organization of your information. So when they do call back in, you remember we have a great AI prospect snapshot tool that will summarize every activity that we have on that person and what they've said, what they're looking for. Pull that up so that when you see their phone number,
Yes.
you're like, oh yeah, I remember you saying your decision timeline is in 3 weeks. So let's talk about next steps and paperwork and how are you feeling. There's just so much work to do on Tour to Move, and obviously this is something I'm passionate about. I'm curious if any of that resonates.
I am too, because honestly, as a marketing agency, like our success is measured on not just how many leads do we generate for you or conversions. It's really about how many tours and do we schedule, how many phone calls, are converted, and then how many people move in. And it breaks my heart when I see I go and see all the recent tours, and then I'll go into a CRM and find out that those tours are just sitting there and there's either no next step or mostly it's past due. Just a lot of post-tour past due. So I will say that although nothing beats, especially post-tour, that warm, human, empathetic connection, at least have a safety net of marketing automation that's going to be at least keeping in touch, sending a newsletter, updating people about events. Just not that it replaces, never going to replace it, but it will be a safety net, because what happens is a lot of times we'll see an overdue activity in the CRM, but then we'll go back into HubSpot and we'll see that they visited the website 3 times since the tour. They're still engaged, but we're just not making the effort. And I know it's hard. I know there's always new leads coming in. New leads are always more exciting than older leads. But these are families who need help, and they just get stuck. They just get scared. They just get overwhelmed. So to have that warm nurturing that can support at least some degree of connection after the tour is.
Two strategies we've seen be really successful from a sales training standpoint. Leaning into sales directors being incredibly competitive people. First thing that has worked really well, we do a mining for gold training that a lot of operators take and turn into a competition. So it's basically how many move-ins can you get from your leads that have dwelled for more than 60 days? Focus on that bucket and see how many move-ins you can get specifically from there. And sometimes there's an incentive attached to that, and sometimes there's not. But great competition to have to redirect focus to that list of folks that have been out of your direct line of sight for a little while. The second one is we have an engagement scoring tool It does what you would expect. It tells you if someone's very engaged, less engaged, not engaged, etc. But one of the best things about it is it's going to tell you when folks are about to dip into the next category. You see my name saying, hey, you have 5 leads, one of them being Maggie, who is about to go from hot to warm because we haven't reached out to her, she hasn't reached out to us. That is your immediate focus group. Do not let me go to warm. Keep me
Right.
drained.
That's right.
And that framing too has been really helpful because so much of the challenge with this is just keeping track of everything that's going on. Some folks have thousands of prospects in their database, which is insane to think through. But just looking for ways to narrow your focus, whether that's let me focus in on the 60 to 90 day group, let me focus on the group that is about to go from hot to warm or warm to cold, and then just use automations and scheduled outreach to try and keep your hands on the rest. But it is a huge challenge and one that is so ripe with opportunity.
Yeah.
So something we're really focused on.
I love the contest because salespeople are competitive and they love incentives. So
Yes.
yay.
Yes. Even our sales team. What were we? Oh, we just had our year in review launch party webinar, and I went over to the sales section of the office and I was like, hey, you guys think that we could get to 1,000 registrants? And they were like, yeah, sure, not that interested. And then I was like, whoever gets the most people registered, I'll give them $100. We were like, oh, look at that registration count going up. It's great. An incentive does a lot.
It does a lot. And it doesn't have to be, $100 is $100, but still, it's not like you're giving them $500.
Exactly. Yeah, this is like a nice dinner for you, not even 2
Right.
people at this point.
I know that whatever works.
Whatever works. So yeah, tour to move in is something we're really excited about leaning into. And I think the other piece of this report that it can be eye-opening for folks is just thinking about the impact that we think of sales as the journey from inquiry to move in, and then sometimes we forget what happens after that.
Yeah.
And length of stay is a metric that folks are really zeroing into now, and move out reasons, because they're wanting to see that improvement in NOI versus just occupancy. And ultimately, we need people to stay, especially if we're going to invest a ton into partnership with aggregators or on our digital spend. We need to make sure that the folks we get in the door have a positive experience and stay with us. And if they do leave, peeling back the curtain and saying, why? Is this an operational problem, or did we sell someone something that is not what we truly have? Or did they have the wrong impression about what they need and then we're not able to serve them appropriately? So there's a lot of focus on that side as well.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. It's always a challenge, right, to measure those kinds of things. But length of stay, if you just focus on the urgent, the shorter the sales cycle, the shorter the length of stay. It's so funny. I was just visiting with a client, flew out, and welcome home client as well. And when we pulled their data around move-ins for 2025, 17% of their move-ins came from paid digital ads. Almost all Google search and PMAX ads. We have another client, also a welcome home client, that, same team, same strategy, same bidding strategy, same everything else. They had 3% of their move-ins from digital. Why? Because the 3% client only wants sales qualified leads. And so they're only getting the urgent, it's a very small people that are just ready to tour today, click to call, like that type of thing. But because they're putting all of their money into the smallest part of the funnel that has really the fewest and it's the most competitive to get, they're not building a pipeline. Whereas the client with 17% of their move-ins from paid ads, they're offering download a brochure, download our funding guide. And so because we're offering earlier top of the funnel conversion options, now they've got this pipeline of marketing qualified leads that are being nurtured, and they're advancing themselves without the sales team doing anything to a sales qualified lead through email automation.
Yeah.
But what a difference. The same strategy, the same budget, the same everything. You can get 3% move-ins or you can get 17% move-ins.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying, because I think there's a increasing trend around sales and marketing being practiced as two separate disciplines when they do need to be thought through together. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes we think of the marketing work as the stuff that happens before a sales director starts to work with the lead. But in the case of someone who is doing their research, a tour is research. That is certainly research. Their mind is not yet made up at that point. More marketing style information is still helpful. And that's why I'm so passionate about post tour too. You are still marketing and selling to that person. And one of the really interesting facts in the report is about length of sales cycle between tour and move in. Half of prospects move in across the industry, and this changes a lot by care type.
Yeah.
Half move in within 40 days, so about a month or so, month and a week. But there's huge variation
Yes.
in the front and in the back. You could have a month and a half and then have 25% taking more than 6 months. And those are the people that really do need to be nurtured from a marketing and sales standpoint. The same people who are getting lost on the 12-time report, and the same people who probably are going to be the ones that'll be your resident referrals if they do move in, because they're being thoughtful, they're taking their time. It's not necessarily an acuity driven decision, it is something they want.
Yes.
So it is really a balance, and I'm very curious to see and hear how operators manage these two practices together, because they do need to work in step, and often we see them working a little bit separately.
Oh, yeah. Our most successful clients are the ones that have sales and marketing on board and integrated and working as a team. But we see a lot of the silos and they don't have the same results. So it's not either sales or marketing. They are so intertwined. And I think so many people think they're a sales qualified lead. Now sales owns them. But if you don't have a mentality to remarket to them as they get stuck, as they get stuck in their journey, they might get stuck post tour. They might get stuck in cold or lost, but not disqualified. There's a whole bucket of people that are lost, right? But the lost is unable to contact or stayed home or chose home care. Okay, those are Band-Aid solutions. Those are not lost forever. But the minute you put them in the lost bucket, that's over.
Truly. And I think that's when we think about where we're headed as an industry, the baby boomers are here. Demand for senior living is very high. There's not enough capacity to serve folks that want to be in senior living. Many of us are assuming that occupancy is just going to be a win. But the reality is we do need to think about NOI. And NOI means we need to think about the folks that are going to stay. And so to avoid the constant flywheel of just turnover, we do need to be really thoughtful about how's our marketing messaging attracting the right person? How are we continuing to market and nurture them through the whole sales funnel? And then even after they're a resident, how do we market to them some more about how great our community is so that they bring their friends?
Yeah, no, it's about building brand ambassadors and being intentional about it. So taking a look at what does your transition process look like for new residents? And then do you have touch points around satisfaction? And even moving out, is there a consistent brand message to thank people for being part of your family and part of your community? It all sets a tone because we're all talking to each other, like you said, at the hairdresser or the bus stop or whatever. People are talking about your brand one way or another, and marketing and selling doesn't end with the move in. It's about building those brand ambassadors that will participate in your friend and family referral sources, generating your best and least expensive leads with the longest length of stay, and leave those great reviews. So I love that you guys are thinking through the whole journey.
And one thing we were really excited about as part of our move into the data space, our broader move into the data space with Senior Care Insights, which we can touch on briefly in just a second. One of the reports we're building towards for the end of the year is Voice of the Prospect. And we are so excited to do a very large scale 20,000 plus respondent survey of how seniors and influencers are engaging with senior living in the marketing stage, when they become prospects, and then post sale, just to understand more of what they're looking for, what information they're wanting, how they're inquiring, and just to be honest with ourselves about some of that and then connect it to the data, which is something that has not been done in the past in this industry. So really looking at how do results actually line up with how people are feeling about this journey. And I've got so many questions. I want to know how AI is being used in part of the journey. I want to know about perception of senior living and what makes it exciting versus not. I'm just so thrilled to get into that and then to tie it to some of the real-time performance data we have. I think it's going to be an awesome project.
We're going to have you back on when you have those results because everyone's going to want to hear about those. Tell us a little bit about the data, the reporting, how people can access them.
Yeah, so our most recent release was our 2025 year in review. It's our 4th annual report. It's a look at all of the core sales and marketing KPIs across all care types, regions, urban and rural. It's really great data. As you mentioned, it is long.
Yeah.
It's 50 plus pages. I'm looking, yep, 55. So take the time to read through it. What has been so much fun about creating these reports is we do include the KPIs, but we also spend a lot of time on the takeaways and best practices. So there's some really valuable information in there about what to do with the insight versus just throwing a ton of data at you and being like, good luck.
Right.
So that's our most recent report. With that report, we launched a data platform called Senior Care Insights. Really, this is our response to a really heightened demand for data over the past 2 years. We have very rich data from thousands of communities that are on the CRM. And so we are going to push the margin on what we're able to deliver from an insight standpoint with that data, but also expand the sources we're pulling from. So thinking about that voice of the prospect survey, voice of the industry is coming up. We're releasing a top performers report shortly too. And we're expanding access to data monthly. So as part of Senior Care Insights, you can sign up for free. We'll put the link in here in the notes, I think.
Yep.
And just check it out. We're really excited to be expanding access to data. I think it's an area where we can improve as an industry, is taking some of these data points, turning them into insight, and then something that is making them easy to apply is the key, particularly for sales and marketing teams and leaders, because as we all know, we're super busy.
Yes, we definitely are. I encourage everyone to check it out. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. You can go and grab this great report. And Maggie, if people want to reach out to you to learn more, what's the best way to get in hold of you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Maggie Seybold. You could just shoot me a message. Also, a little hack about Welcome Home is all of our emails are our first name dot last name at welcomehomesoftware.com. So if you ever need to get in touch with anybody, just draft it up and you got us.
That's great.
Feel free to email me as well.
That's great. Maggie, thank you for sharing your senior living marketing perspectives with us. And hopefully they'll let you out to come to some of the conferences so that we can see you in person.
So. Get some sunlight, anything
right.
anything by the beach. Feel free to invite me.
Senior housing news is coming.
Yes, I'm excited for that one.
All righty, take care.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.